it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this gorgeous Tropical Blossom Shawl. This is a lovely piece that's made with a bunch of flower motifs. We're going to be making, it's a triangle shape, so we're going to be starting at the bottom here and just adding motifs until we have this beautiful wrap. Now I've used some ombre yarn so you kind of can see the different gradient of color that I have here, but you can easily use some self-striping yarn for lots of different color flowers, or solid yarn too if you want something more kind of uniform in color. Now the finished piece, if we work from the bottom point and go straight up, just draw a straight line to the very top, is about 38 inches. From the bottom point here, going all the way up the side, is about 45 inches, and then our top edge of our triangle is 44 inches. Now I kept working on mine. I started, like I said, at the bottom here, and I kept adding more flowers, and working them sort of in rows until I got to the top of my shawl. And the top of my shawl is 16 flower motifs across. So just to give you an idea, this is a nice size shawl. You could really wear this year round. And again, we're going to be using some ombre yarn and just kind of be working them in rows. Now, if you go over to the blog, the full written pattern is there, so you can refer to that. And also, when I started, the very kind of beginning triangle that I made, there is a photo on that, so you can sort of see the placement of how we've started the motifs, and then you just kind of continue on with that. So we're going to get started first by learning how to make our first flower motif. Then we're going to learn how to join the other flowers onto this first one that we did until we have a gorgeous shawl. Finally, we're going to finish up with our finished work, weaving in the ends, etc. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a tape measure will be super helpful. Now we're going to be building this shawl flower by flower, so it'll grow in width and height as we go along. But if you're after a specific size, a tape measure will be super helpful to have. We're going to be using a 5.5 millimeter eye crochet hook. This is my Furls Odyssey in the white. It's kind of like a off-white pearly color. And I'll put the link down below if you'd like to get one of these for yourself. We're going to be using some Super Saver Ombre by Red Heart. This is the jazzy colorway. It's kind of like goes from pale pink to like a deep pink color. And we're going to be using 2 of these for a total of 964 yards. So each skein that I have here is 482 yards, and I'm going to be using 2, so 964 yards total. And again, this is the jazzy colorway, and it does come in dye lots, so make sure if you're using 2 skeins of the same color like I am, that your dye lots are the same so that when you go from skein to skein, the color is more consistent over the 2 skeins. So if you need to substitute yarn though, just look on your yarn label here for a medium 4 weight yarn. This is a worsted weight yarn, and it does recommend the 5.5 millimeter eye crochet hook that we will be using. And again, 2 balls of this for a total of 964 yards. Each one of this is 482. So 964 yards total of this yarn. So let's get started. So to begin, we're going to make our first flower in its entirety. So we're going to make the first one, and then we'll be joining flowers onto that first one, okay? And go from there. We're going to begin by putting a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Now we're going to make a ring, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see here. We're going to be making a ring that we will be working our stitches into for round 1. So to begin, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4. To make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch in the chain farthest from our hook to create a ring. So insert the hook into that farthest chain from the hook, that first chain that you made, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And now we have the ring that we'll be working our stitches into. As a side note, if you prefer the magic ring to start your flower, please feel free to do that. I know some people like to do one over the other. We're also going to hold this tail along the edges we worked, and that will just weave it in as we go. We're going to be making lots and lots of flowers, so weaving in as many ends as we can as we go along will be helpful. So hold that along the edges we work. So let's begin round 1 of our flower. Our flowers will only have 2 rounds, so they're very easy and quick to make. So for round 1, once again, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then into the center of the ring, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1 11 times. So just as a side note, this chain 1 counts as one of the double crochet chain 1s that we're going to make. So we're going to do, by the time we're done, because that counts as one, we're going to have 12 spokes on our little wheel that we're going to be creating, okay? So we're going to move forward and do double crochet, chain 1 11 times, okay? So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into the center of the ring, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, and then chain 1. So we did that once. We're going to do it for a total of 11 times. That was a mouthful to say. Okay, so that was 1. Then we're going to do 2, and then 3, and chain 1. Don't forget the chain 1 in the middle. And then we're going to do 4 and chain 1, 5, chain 1, 6, chain 1, 7, and chain 1, 8, and chain 1, 9, and chain 1, 10, and chain 1, and 11, and chain 1. Now what I like to do is just give it a quick little count. So we had our chain at the beginning, and then we did 11 double crochet chain 1s. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to join in that 3rd chain up. Remember we did a chain 4 at the beginning of the round? So that was a double crochet chain 1. Is that what that counted as? So in the 3rd chain up, 1, 2, 3, we're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. So insert the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and round 1 is complete. So if you want to, you can flip your little circle over and you can pull this tail tight. I like to trim it and get it out of the way. You can wait to the end. It's up to you, but I like to trim mine now to kind of move it out of the way. So pull it up nice and snug, and then give your tail a trim with your scissors, okay? So let's flip this back over, and let's move on to round 2, okay? Round 2 is the last round of our flower. All right, so for round 2, what we're going to do is our hook is not quite in the right spot because we're need to get to that first chain 1 space. So what you want to do is slip stitch over until you get to that chain 1 space. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then what we'll do is in that chain 1 space, we're going to work 3 double crochet and then chain 1. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, 3 double crochet, and then chain 1. And then we're going to hop over to the next chain 1 space. Remember those chain 1s we did in between all these double crochets. So go to the next chain 1 space, and we're going to work a slip stitch. So insert the hook into that chain 1 space and bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And now we have our first little petal. Our flowers are going to have 6 petals, okay? So now hop over to the next chain 1 space, and we're going to create our next petal. So this time we're going to work 4 double crochets into the space, because remember that chain 3 at the beginning? That counted as one of our double crochets. Remember we did a chain 3 and then 3 double crochets? So for this one, we're going to do 4 double crochets. So in this chain 1 space, do 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to hop over to the next chain 1 space and work a slip stitch into that chain 1 space, okay? Second petal complete. Hop over to the next chain 1 space and work your next petal. 4 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4, chain 1. Work a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space, What that does is kind of rounds our petal over to give it that flower shape, okay? Now hop over to the next chain one space and work your next petal. 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1. Work a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. Hop over to the next chain 1 space and we're going to work our next petal. 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, and then work a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. Okay? Flower's looking really nice. Okay, next space, work your final petal, because now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to work the 6th petal next. Okay? So 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, and then work a slip stitch into that last chain 1 space of our round here. And then to close our flower, what we're going to do is we're going to join to close the round with a slip stitch in the chain at the base of the first petal now. Okay, so remember we did a chain 3 at the beginning of the round? We're going to go to the base of that petal, because if we go to the top, it'll go across and we won't get that nice little petal divot that we need. Okay, so go to the base of that first petal you made and insert the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring the loop through the loop already on your hook. And our first flower is complete. It looks great. Okay, so let's cut our yarn next. And what we're going to do, wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the loop to fasten off, okay? Now, we have our very beginning of our shawl. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab our yarn again, and I'm going to just kind of scoot this flower out of the way because we're going to make our second flower. And as we work around on round 2, that's where we'll start putting some joins in, okay? So what we want to do now is work our flower the same way we've been doing. Now, we already worked this flower, so this next flower we do will be very familiar. So if you need to skip ahead, please feel free to do that. But I'll kind of zip through the beginning that we've already done together, and then when we get to the joins, we'll slow down a little bit. Okay, so once again, put a slip knot on your hook. And we're going to chain 4. I'm going to go through this part a little quicker, like I said, just because we've just done it. Okay, but if you want to join me, feel free. Okay, we're going to join with a slip stitch to create a ring. Again, if you want to do a magic ring here, feel free to do that. Then for round 1, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then into the center of the ring, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1 11 times. So that was 1, and then we're going to go 2, and then 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sliding things over if you need to make yourself some more room, and 11. Just like that. Don't forget the chain 1s in between. And then once again, count 3 chains up, join with the slip stitch to close the round. And then once again, we kind of just slip stitch over a little bit to get to that chain 1 space, and we're ready to work the first petal. So for our first petal, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That counts as one of our double crochets. And then in that chain 1 space, that first chain 1 space that we're working into, work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Then work a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. Whoops, there we go. Next space, 4 double crochet this time. 1, 2, 3, and and 4, chain 1, work a slip stitch into the next, chain 1 space. And then in the next chain 1 space, work 4 double crochet once again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, work a slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. Okay, so we've made a couple petals. We're about halfway around. Let's grab our other flower because we're going to start doing some joins. Now, we have 6 petals, like I said before, on each flower, and we're working on the rest of our petals of this flower. So whenever we make a join, let's say this tail is the bottom, we're going to do 2 into 2, and then when we come back and do our next flower, we'll do 2 into those 2, okay, and keep going. Okay, so let's learn how to make a join onto a petal. So grab your other flower and have it ready. So what you'll do is, remember each petal has 4 double crochets. So what we're going to do is we're going to join in the middle. So in like that middle space is where we'll make our joins. So what you'll do is in that next space, work your first half of the petal. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. And now we're ready to make a join. We made half of the petal. So grab your flower, pick any random petal, it doesn't matter, and go in between, in the very middle of that petal that you're going to join into, and go kind of in between those 2 stitches, okay, like that little space there. So go in from the top, reach back, scoop up the yarn, and bring up a loop. Now you're going to bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and we've just joined our flowers, okay? Now go back down to your flower and make 2 double crochets to finish the petal. 1 and 2, just like that. And our flowers are joined. They look beautiful. Okay, now go into the next space of your flower that you're working and make a slip stitch. Now let's make our next join because we're joining 2 petals, okay? So go into the next space and work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Now we're ready to make a join. So swing back around to your flower and go in between the petal. So you have 2 double crochets on this side, 2 on this side, and then like that space in the middle. So go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop that's already been on your hook, and then finish up your petal. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, just like that. And now our flowers are joined. They look great. Okay, so you can just kind of finish up your flower the way you normally would, okay? So go into the next space and work a slip stitch. Go into the next space and work your next petal. So do 4 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next space. And then once again, if you remember, we did a slip stitch into the base of that first chain that we did at the beginning of the round. So insert your hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And now you can cut the yarn and fasten off, just like that, okay? So we have the beginnings of our shawl. So if we think about our shawl, this being the bottom of it here, we have joined 2 flowers so far, okay? So we're going to continue joining flowers. Okay, so I'm going to join a few more flowers just to kind of show you how we're going to position some of these. And then I'm also going to share with you when we come back kind of like a little chart of how our flowers will be positioned. You don't really need to do them in any special order, but you might want to get a stitch marker to kind of help mark the bottom. Okay, so our next flower is a little different than the first one that we did. We just joined one flower into another flower. This flower, we're going to spin this around just so you can see it at a better angle here. We're going to make a regular join here, but then we're going to make a join in the center, and that'll be just a little bit different, not too bad. So I've gotten to the point where I'm ready to join. I made my 2 double crochets, ready to go into this petal. So let's go into this petal first and do our regular join. Going from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then just go ahead and finish the petal with 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. Then in the next space, work a slip stitch. Then let's start on the next petal. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, just like that. Okay, now we're going to join this flower now into the middle of these two here. So if we go into the corners like we did before, the center of this petal or the center of this petal, it'll be off center. So for this one, we're going to go in between the petals. See how that space is when you kind of pull it apart? And we're going to do it that way so it's centered. So go in from the top again into that space, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And then we're going to finish that petal. Work your 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Just like that. Then a chain, whoops, drop my loop. Then a chain 1. Then a slip stitch into that space. Just like that, okay? Now we have another petal to do, another join here before we finish. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start our petal the way we've been doing it. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Now we're ready to join. So go into that petal that you want to make your join on. And that one's right here. Go in the middle. See how I'm kind of using my hand to kind of find the center of it? You might need to kind of wiggle around a little bit here, but there it is. Go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and then once again finish your petal. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then your chain 1, and then go into that last space here, work a slip stitch into that last space, and then a slip stitch into the base of the chain, just like we've been doing it. We're just got more attached here now. Okay, and that flower now is complete. So you can kind of like straighten things out. Whenever I make a flower, I like to kind of straighten things out. Grab your scissors and just cut the yarn, wrap the yarn around your hook, bring it through to fasten off, and just tighten it up, okay? So again, if we're using our stitch marker as a guide, actually, mine was a little off center. It's actually right here. That is the center. So I'm just going to reposition it a little bit. So you can see now that we're starting to build a little bit of a triangle shape with our flowers. It looks great. So what we can do now is just keep adding flowers onto our piece. So when we come back, I'm going to add a few more flowers and just get it a little bit bigger and kind of show you what I'm doing here. But we're also going to, on the blog, you can see a chart where I actually have this kind of illustrated of the placement. We have like 1, 2, 3. You don't have to necessarily do them in that numeral order, but if you like to see a visual, it's extremely helpful. So what we're going to do is keep going with our shawl, adding some more flowers. And when we rejoin, I'm going to just show you a few more that I've added on. And, you know, we can kind of see a visual of how these flowers will be placed. And then you can really just start adding them on, okay? So let's add a few more flowers and then we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, so I added some more flowers and I just wanted to kind of show you the layout. Now this chart, I made a chart of where all the little joins are too and kind of how it's laid out. That's on the blog if you want to kind of see a visual of that. But what we've done is, again, we started at the bottom, we did that together, and we're working our way up and out. So I found that it was easy to sort of think about this in levels, okay? So we started, here's 1 flower, and then the next level is 2 flowers, the next level is 3 flowers, 4 flowers, and 5 flowers. So the next level of flowers that we will be adding will be 6 flowers, and we'll just keep replicating that over and over and over until our shawl is as large as we would want it to be, or until we run out of yarn, whatever comes first. Now, we're just starting to see a little bit of the ombre changes. So if you're doing ombre yarn like me, you know, we are starting to see just a slight shift of color here. We have a really dark saturated area here, and then there's some light areas. So we're starting to get that really fun ombre effect. So I found that it was easy to work when I'm adding a level of flowers. to work kind of from the middle and work my way out. You can do whatever you want, but that kind of helped me. So again, the chart that I made where I sort of just took this image and just indicated where all the joins are can be found on the blog if you need to see a visual. Like if you're adding a flower and you're like, where exactly do I make these joins? And then the rest of it will just sort of be replicated like we've done already here. So keep adding your flowers. So the next level will be 6 flowers because this one was 5. So that's really easy kind of way to think about it. And then when we rejoin, I'm going to go ahead and add some flowers. And then when we rejoin, we're going to learn how to kind of do some finish work, finish up our flowers, and take care of all of these ends. You can kind of weave them in as you go along. And these center ones, you can give them a firm tug and just grab your scissors and give them a little snip. So if the ends are kind of annoying you as you work, you can kind of take care of them as you go along. If not, you can take care of them at the end. So keep adding your flowers level by level by level, and we'll rejoin in just a minute and you can see kind of the full spectrum of flowers that we've added. Okay, I have added all the flowers until I basically had no more yarn left. So if you start here at the bottom and just kind of look up and see here across the top, you can see that the ombre, the way the flowers were added row by row by row, they really have a nice effect. And each one kind of stands out on its own because of the different contrasting shades of pink. Okay, so we're all done, and I just wanted to show you. I kept going. Now, you remember we started here at the bottom with our little marker, and I kept adding more and more and more flowers. And there is a chart, just this kind of beginning part, where you can see just sort of like how they fit together and kind of to get you started. But I kept going until my top row, now let's count them together, was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 across, okay? So the last thing we need to do is weave in the ends. Now all these motifs, each of them has 2 ends. The center one that we wove in as we went along when we crocheted the flower, which we can just simply snip. And then the one where we left off, okay? So I went ahead and wove in the ends. I did save one down here so we could weave it in together. And you can see the back of it looks just as fun. It kind of almost has a puff stitch effect. They're kind of a little 3D on the back. So just grab your tapestry needle and thread that tail. And you want to kind of stay, because we do have some multi, different shades of pink, but you don't want to weave like a dark pink through a light pink flower, for example. So just try to stay in the flower that you're weaving the end into. But we're just going to go into those back loops only and just weave in your tail. And you can come back through in the opposite direction if you like, just to kind of lock that tail into place. And then just give it a little snip. Now I will say there will be lots of ends. I spent a good bit of time weaving these in, but I do feel like it's worth it because the finished result is just so pretty. This is just such a fun and interesting wrap. The last thing you'll want to do is take off your stitch marker if you were using one to kind of mark where the bottom was. And your wrap is ready to wear. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as me. So that is how you crochet the Tropical Blossom Shawl. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.